Welcome back to another episode of FoolCraft, and I had a plan today, peeps. I was going to be exploring the world, searching for Hermitron cases, looking for the missing pieces of our Hermitron sets, which is probably actually going to take a very long time. I love this place. I keep coming over here and just checking it out again, and I can't wait to build the area down below, but my plans have actually changed. I am a busy bee, so much going on that unfortunately won't be able to work on that today. So we're going to do a few other things, but I thought we'd start off with a poll. And the question is, do you even care? Now you might wonder what it is I'm asking if you care about. Do you care when YouTubers tell you how much time they have, right? Because YouTube is a busy job, it takes a lot of your time, and you probably hear us moan from time to time about not having enough to record videos because they take a long time. And then I thought, would you even notice if I just recorded one that took me less time than usual? I don't know. But I'm coming over and I'm pointing at these things because we've forgotten about those for a while, haven't we? Well, we're going to come back to that later in this episode. I have been meaning to do the turrets for so long and I keep getting distracted with all these other beautiful projects. You'll also notice that Walia at the top of my screen is a lot larger than usual, and that's because my settings have reset. I need to come over here with some string, didn't I? I got some maintenance work to do. And is it me, or is that like a lot brighter than those blocks? I mean, they're always brighter, but a lot brighter than I remember it being. Maybe that's changed in the update as well. We are now on FoolCraft 2.5.1. If you are playing FoolCraft, go and download the latest update of the pack. There have been a whole bunch of cool things added in this one that I'm hoping to maybe look into some of it later on in this episode. But right now I want to show you a couple of things. This one is called What a Beautiful Block. I kind of like it. It feels like there might be a use for that if you were playing vanilla. You know, you got some glowstone for lighting. You want to make the lighting extra fancy. It's got a nether star in it. It costs 8 glowstone and a nether star to make. And when you break it, you get it back like that. Although this thing doesn't actually have silk touch, does it? The next thing that I want to show you is a weirding gadget. Now, this is good for multiplayer if you're playing on a server with your friends. This thing, what it will do is it will chunk load a 3x3 area. But after, I think, 3 days, this thing will stop winding around and it will stop chunk loading. However, if the player logs on, it's going to reset that. So the idea is that it's a chunk loader for players who become inactive after a certain amount of time. So it will automatically, stop loading that area. Now let's pop down below and just attach a cable over the side here. I want to show you another thing that's been added in a mod called AE2 Stuff. This is a crystal growth chamber. And what it's going to do is the process that we have going on over here. This thing is actually running right now, and you can see my magnet is freaking out. But because there is glass in front of us, we are not actually taking those items. Let's pop into one of these machines. There it is, fluic seeds and Certus quartz seeds. So this is what we should be popping into this growth chamber. And you can see it slowly ticks up. I imagine you can probably hook up an import and an export. So with this AE2 Stuff mod, you can replace a whole complicated farm like that. I actually really like the problem-solving aspect of this, right? You know, having to use things like dispensers, a clock, a sound muffler, and some cables. I really enjoy that. This just replaces it all with one block. So I'm not going to use it, but we'll let these ones do their thing and grow up into full crystals. Anyway, I should probably take off my night vision helmet down here because you're going to see that this area actually becomes quite dark. And that is because I never put any lighting down here, did I? Let's break this block very slowly. Let's stand on top of it so it's a little bit faster. And let's open up my tools. Did I already take it? I already took it out of my inventory. So I was watching False's video. She was coming through here and I've realised that I played in this area the entire time with my night vision helmet on. So there is no lighting in here. And we should probably solve that by going around and working on that. But what I want to work in on this episode is this floor. I've kind of neglected it a little bit. I did say all of this stuff was temporary, so I want to work on the look of this area, the layout as well. I've got some ideas for changing the layout, and I need to put on my thinking cap, really, don't I? And we'll get ready to get going in this room. It's not looking too pretty yet, is it? You might be looking at this and thinking, oh, I don't know about that, Asuma. Well, I'm just getting started. I've got ideas that I'm going to be showing you. First of all, we've got to talk about our plan for the layout, which was supposed to just be a corridor in that direction and a corridor in this direction. Well, I've been doing some digging in the area and realizing that actually the surface above is not too far away from us, so we're going to be limited from going in certain directions. All of this city dirt that's here is kind of representing our limitations for going in this direction. If we want to keep the whole thing on one level, which is actually probably a really good idea if we don't, because what I want to do is get organic with the layout rather than just have a straight corridor to walk through. I think it'd be nice if this thing were to kind of wind around the place, so it could turn the corner, and then over here you've got like another little segment, and perhaps this has a doorway that you can go through and you can get into the back area over here where we're going to be changing some of the textures. For example, this stuff right here, not too keen on having that in the back area, so we're going to get rid of that and we're going to replace it with something else. This is the material I think will look cool in the back area. Now, a moment ago when I mined up some of that marble, I actually completed a quest, and I thought that was kind of strange because the quests were removed a while ago. Well, they've been added back, and unfortunately we've lost our progress. However, I'm going to speak to Scouter. I imagine there is a backup somewhere and that we could get that back. But if we go into the questing book, press the wrong key, let's press the right key, there we go. You can see that all the quests are back. Now, the one that I got was related to astral sorcery, and since I'm trying to learn this mod and I haven't had too much time since we last looked at it in an episode, this might help us on our way through the mod pack. And thanks for the marble, that's good, because it's going to walk us through the different things that we need to do. So that, as well as the book that you get in the mod, might be a really cool way of progressing in astral sorcery. You'll see some other fancy blocks in my inventory here. We're going to talk about that in a moment. First of all, though, I am going to say if you enjoy this series, leave a like. I'm not much of a like baiter, as Iskal would say, but you always want to encourage support on your videos because, you know, YouTube is a system that rewards you for those sort of things. So if you've been enjoying this series, please do leave a like. As always, thank you in advance for the support. And this may not be, you know, the best episode for for showing some gratitude or whatever, because today I am just trying to get an episode out to you. But it couldn't have been a better time, really, because I am so in the mood for playing FoolCraft, and I'm loving where we're going to go with the building that we're doing in this room. Just getting the ceiling and the floor in place first of all, and these blocks ain't going to stay. This place is starting to look really clean and pristine, which I kind of really like for this, what is sort of like a little bit of a factory setting. And messing around with different textures for the ceiling, I'm kind of surprised that I like this one the most out of the ones that I've tried. It is not particularly pretty, but something about it, I think it's just the fact that it breaks itself up by having these beams going through it. It's really working for me compared to the other ones that I've tried. And let's just fill in this space over here and talk about what is going on in this room. So currently we got some cables coming through which are breaking up the textures at the top and the bottom. Well, we want to kind of keep everything clean in here. What I wanted to do is have this thing, directly in the middle of the room. But then where would the cable go? So we put it around like this and the cable comes out of it. So it kind of makes sense when you look at it, what's going on here. Now we're going to pull that cable out and it is going to go straight into that thing. And now the entirety of this should be hooked up to the network. So that means we can break this over here. Hi. And that up top. And we can fill in those gaps. So I've filled in most of the room now. And we've got these big open panels. Now I think whenever we get around to this bit here, we're probably going to end up using some glass, because I really like the idea of looking through into that area. In fact, I was going to panel this thing off entirely, but now I'm thinking just leave it like it is. Put some glass in front of it and that'll do the trick, won't it? Also, I'm doing all of this with night vision on, so let's take that off again. It's about to get very dark in here. I was thinking at the back of the room, what we might have is this corridor wrapping around, so you'd look into it from this side as well. But maybe what we do for now is fill it in with something like this temporarily, right? Actually, I don't like that being level with the wall. We'll put it back by 1 block, which should look good, and then we'll fill in all those spaces. So despite the darkness, this thing is looking pretty BA, and if we're going to have it so you can look into the room, kind of means we can put a lot more stuff in there as well, right? I'm actually really liking where this project is going. Now the next thing I want to address is lighting, and I've got some painted glowstone here which should work with connected textures, and I thought that this right here looks very bright as it is, the laboratory block. So that's it emitting light, and you know it's kind of bright on its own anyway. So it could be a good light source, and I think there it kind of makes a lot of sense right above the entrance. And then probably in the ceiling as well, we could scatter a couple of these around. So let's just line it up with the middle. This is the center of the room. Let's go over to the edge here and let's break that block. In fact, we've got like a 2 wide bit up there. So we could have single ones of those every so often. In fact, what we could do is a little pattern. Like that, except I broke the wrong block. You can kind of see where we're going with that, right? Yeah, that's really clean. I think that's the way to move forward. I'm liking this, and because it's in the ceiling, it means it's a little bit dimmer down below, and there is, you know, a nice balance going on here. I'd still like to use these lights as well, if we could space them out, because they look really cool, just the way they sit on top of a block. And adding in details is something we really need, because everything so far has been very blocky. But let's move on to the glass, okay? So if we were to go and search glass in the terminal, you'll see we've got a lot of different types in here. And some of them that have caught my attention are the ineffable and the ethereal. And then there's dark ineffable as well. So this should give us an interesting property where we are able to, I believe, walk through the glass, but mobs etc. wouldn't be able to. So that's kind of cool. Then ethereal glass, I'm not sure what the difference is here. Okay, it's kind of the same thing. I can walk through it, right? How is that pattern when we expand it? It kind of loops over and over again. So for a doorway over here, I reckon this stuff would look pretty cool. I don't know, if you press F1, yeah, it's sort of there, but then you can go through it. I don't know about that. I think if the line just wasn't at the bottom, that would be perfect. We've also got some dark ineffable glass, which will stop light going through it as well. And we can walk through that. That's awesome, man. Let's try that one over on this side, I tell ya. Oh, this is going to look cool. Actually, I don't know. Does it look cool or not? I can't really tell. But walking through it is fun. Oh, I got to make up my mind now. It's got to be one or the other. But that's seriously cool. So those are some great ideas. And the other thing that we've got to do is put glass on the front of this. This is where we're going to need some chisel. If we want it at the front here, the lights are going to have to come out, which means they're going to have to go somewhere else because this is too dark. Unless we use those lamps we got back there on this ceiling as well. But for now, let's say we just throw them up the top here like every other block. That might end up looking pretty cool, actually. Not so sure about that, but we're going to need a glass that doesn't have a lot of texture, right? And that actually does have a lot of texture in the middle. I cycled through all of the textures then with my chisel, and none of them had like the gap in the middle that I was looking for. So Ender.io has quite clear glass, and I still don't actually think this is what I'm after as well, because it basically looks the same once you step back from it, right? Except you can't interact with the blocks at the front, which I'm not sure is a thing I want to do or not. So I'm still in search for the ultimate glass to put here. I also think maybe using a glass pane would be nicer as well, as it would add some depth. However, we're going to get those streaks, so unless there's something in here that I've missed that doesn't have those, then we ain't got too many options. This down here from Mine Factory Reloaded, that might look alright. I don't know. It's going to add a lot of white, isn't it? And hopefully this stuff ain't too difficult to make. But yeah, I don't think we've got many or more options than that. I have spent too long going through the enormous amount of textures in this pack, just trying to find something to make a border with, right? And it kind of complements this one, and it's the block of steel, and it's been set to the shipping crate, and it's just got the right amount of texture and the colours just right for it to match what we got going on here. So that's going to act as a little border that you're probably barely even going to notice. And do you know what? There's another place where this might go as well, actually. Like that, across the ceiling. Just adds a tiny bit of shape. I think I like that. Does that work? You barely notice it, to be fair. In fact, because it's the same as this one here, I'm thinking, if anything, this one maybe should pop out a little bit more. Smooth white stone. We need more of this stuff because I want to use some framed trim. These are like fake drawers, which sounds kind of silly, but basically the drawer block without actually storing items. I think I need 6 of those, and that's great because we want to leave these materials in here so I can remember what they are next time. Now what I want to do at this point is actually just go around and really move things along, like get these things out of the way, get these textures over on this side, and we're kind of done with all the little details. I've just forgotten about so many of them. So I think what we can do is add these framed trims over here, and then we get the same texture, and look at that. Yeah, it fills in that space, which was a little bit of a problem. I also attached a border here, which I think looks kind of cool. So I'm going to copy it around to this side. Let's jump forward in time together, as I have been working on this area a lot, filling in all the spaces, bringing the theme, and do you know what? It might need some refinement here and there, but I'm really loving how it looks. Now, when you see something like that, that's kind of like an end of corridor, right? But it could be temporary. You might expand. I think I've done it differently. No, I did it almost the same over there. There's like a beam at the top. Not on that one, and then over here I did it entirely differently. And I should actually show you there's another project that I started on a stream which I haven't really touched since, which was to have a little temple over here and do some Tinker's stuff with it. Well, there's a mod added in this update that actually changes some stuff in Tinker's, and I think that might be a cool reason to play around with this as it's now different. So we might start up a little project over here, and perhaps its underside area could hook into all of this as well, as these things walk up pretty close to it. But let's talk about some of the changes that you're going to see. So I've made a room here, and I didn't extend this thing all the way to the top as I felt it would take up a lot of the room. So this one's just going to have a cable coming out of the ground. Looks like I messed up the floor in this one as well. You should be over to the side there. Let's go look at this room. There's a bunch of panels on the side here. I've taken that texture that we were wrapping around the outside here and created a little grid, and these ones are literally just illumination panels. They emit light, and I don't think they do anything else, and I gridded them up with some panels so you can access various things from this point right here, which is pretty cool. Moving through this area, I don't think there's actually anything to comment on here, so let's go around to this side. As I said earlier, there could potentially be another room over here and we could put some stuff back there, but I've kind of sectioned that off for now. And then this room, you can see why I changed how we did this over on the first room that I showed you, because it takes up so much of this space. Might have to try and utilize this idea differently. Maybe we just have this texture as a ring in the ground and the cable comes out of it. But yeah, anyway, I'm thinking that we should probably create a corridor somewhere around here. And that means that I'm going to have to deassemble some of these molecular assembles and rebuild them again, which I'm not in the mood for doing right now. I could alternatively leave it as a massive wall going all the way down there, but I think in the long run that's going to look ugly, so I'll make up my mind about it. But we're going to move on to something I said we'd do earlier in the episode. We're going to start up a little project in here. In fact, that idea that I said a moment ago, I really want to check that out now, because in my mind it seems really cool. So if we do that and we just have a cable come out of the grounds, that might work. It opens up the room a little bit more. There was originally something else I was going to do though. I was going to make a little room with molecular assemblers for these blocks right here. So if we look at the recipe of these, by the way, they're all from Biomes of Plenty. They're made out of these things that we went hunting in a previous episode. And if we look at the recipe, it's all made out of essence, and I think each and every one of those, its only use is that. So we could set up some assemblies for these blocks, which I was actually thinking could go really well in this area. And if not in this area, anywhere else in our base, an opportunity to use these textures, I think would be awesome. So that texture right there is alright. When it's in your inventory, it looks kind of squarish, and it looks like it might sort of go alongside that, but no, I think not. These two are based on emeralds, so they look kind of cool, very colourful. And then we got that one, and we got this one over here. But my favourite one, the one I think we could have actually fit into this build palette, is this one right here, because it's kind of purpley, and the pattern that it has on the block is, I believe, similar to the Applied Energistics 2 textures that we've seen many times before. So it kind of fits the theme. However, if you look around, where exactly in this build would it go at this point? Because I got so far into building it, I haven't considered this texture, and so I don't think we're actually going to get to use it here, although I'd very much like to do that. But there are a bunch of cool textures that we're going to automate the crafting of real soon. We're going to put them into possibly compacting drawers, so they uncraft, so we can put them into compacting drawers. Awesome. And we'll probably build a little room for all of that down here. But right now, we're going to work on what will go in this room. It is probably a good idea to actually have all of the infrastructure you need in place before you start making a room around it, because this room would never be big enough for what I initially had planned with this room, which was to automate everything inside of open modular turrets. Seemed like a good idea in my mind. Then I started to look at the recipes and realized that this is going to require a lot of molecular assemblers, a lot of setting up, and so many parts of this are dependent on other things that need automating as well. We would literally be looking at probably double the amount of molecular assemblers as to what we've got over there, and that just didn't feel very efficient. So I thought, well, maybe we could automate the ammo and have that in place. But here's the thing, we haven't even played around with the different types of ammo yet. So I think either next episode or one in the future, what we will do is make all the different types of guns, all the different types of ammos and upgrades, and mess around with them, have a play about and find out more about this mod before we decide what we're going to automate. And we haven't touched this thing pretty much since the first time I set up those turrets. So what we're going to do right now is check them out, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that are really cool. So this room might actually get repurposed for something else, because there's a little area of technical stuff that I've forgotten about just up here. It's been hidden by all the building that I'm doing. We have a whole bunch of ender chests for importing and exporting. We've got our input-output port for shuffling the drives around. We've got the disk drive controller, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff up here that could actually be moved into a room, and it would be nice to be able to access this stuff because we've got dimensional transceivers and such which might need tweaking or configuring. And I've actually added one over here. This dimensional transceiver has ammo inside of it, as you can see, and that's because I've hooked it up to an exporter. So that's one of the things that could go in that room down below. Now the idea here is we take all the ammo in the system which we aim to automate, we put it into a channel, an item channel, and we've also got power here as well. So when we put down one of these dimensional transceivers, there it is, I've got a receiving one here, next to the turret base, it's going to give it the power and the ammunition that it needs for the gun, which is really cool. So what we need to do now is head out of the base. We need to go outside. I don't know what time of day it is, I've been underground for too long, and we need to go, well actually we don't need to find a turret that's already there, because I've got a railgun turret head right here. Let me show you what many of you told me in the last episode after reading all of my comments. There is an upgrade that means that we could hide these turret bases and the turret itself. So we're going to mess around with this, and then we'll put it in the proper location, which is probably going to be like in a tree, which sounds a little bit strange now. First of all, we've got to configure this up to receive the turret power, and we've also got to set it up to receive the ammo. It's doing both of those things now. And then we're going to put this on top of it, and we should see it getting powered up. Excellent, but no ammo is going into it. We might actually require a tiny bit more configuration here. Can you push? I think that works. Excellent. So now that ammo has been moved into there, which is pretty cool. Now this thing has a couple of add-on slots and a couple of upgrades. It's also got... Okay, I can't control that. I don't remember tweaking that before, but that's fine. So here are the add-ons that we could use. These have got big tooltips, which are apparently difficult to read because of the things on the side there. So what is the first one? Conceals the turret base when they aren't shooting. Now I had a comment from someone saying that these things could go invisible when they weren't being used if I used an upgrade. I'm assuming that's what they were talking about, so I made one of those. We've also got a solar panel one as well. Now I've got a feeling if we hide it under a tree, then it's not going to be able to use that, but this thing could technically power itself. However, I wouldn't really rely on that in the long run. And then what's the other one we got there? Was that damage boost? Yeah, so obviously that's self-explanatory. So we're going to put the concealer in and the damage boost, and it hasn't concealed itself yet. Maybe we've got to add the railgun, that's fine. Then we've got two other upgrades down here. We have range and fire rate, so it will shoot further and it will shoot faster, and these things cost extra, you know, power and stuff as well, which is just fine because we're pumping loads into it. They stack up to 4 times. I don't think these ones stack, which is pretty cool. So that's a lot more powerful than what we've seen before. And then we've got this thing which we're going to attach on top of it. Now I don't know at what point this becomes invisible. It doesn't. It's the gun that becomes invisible. If we go check up on the other one, we shall see, yeah, that it's just out there in the open. Right, so now I think I understand how we would go about hiding this inside of a tree. So that in itself isn't actually too obvious on its own, right? It's kind of there doing its thing. Once we attach this add-on to it, that bottom bit should conceal itself, and then it is definitely a lot harder to spot. So if we can mass produce these, we could hide them in the trees all over the place. and then they wouldn't be so obvious like this over here. I mean, that kind of sticks out and tells you that it's there, which is fine. I think I actually like these so much I'm going to leave them in place, but that is going to be a seriously cool way of keeping out any intruders. You probably wouldn't notice that, would you? And it doesn't have any ammo. I think that's because I picked it all back up, and now it needs configuring as well. So we can have it fire single or multiple shots. I really don't know what's best. We're going to have to mess around with all of this stuff and configure. That's right. Right, so we've got to add false and beef to this. So that was the big idea, and we got to mass produce those things now, but I don't think I'm going to do that by automating every process. I think I'm just going to manually craft like a stack of railguns and then a stack of the bases and stacks of each of these upgrades, and we'll move some stuff from up above into this room here. And there's a bunch of other stuff I've got planned as well, but I'm running out of time. I've got to go today, and I hope you've enjoyed this more relaxed episode of FoolCraft. I really feel like it yielded something really great, because this area is looking fabulous, wouldn't you say? I like it ever so much. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. As always, thank you for the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now. Bye bye.